fighting out of California, being trained by John Lover. Here's a man at 240 pounds.
I'd much rather do crystal meth than train for a fight.
Her and I had our arrangement.
What was your arrangement?
Stealing $300 every time you wanted to go use crystal meth.
Aaron Brink says he's the suspected Colorado Springs shooter's father. Former porn star and current MMA trainer says he didn't raise his child.
Born in 1974, growing up in Huntington Beach, California, as a teenager, Aaron Brink would attend the same high school as Tito Ortiz, before being expelled for fighting. He would frequent juvenile centers as a minor from 1989 to 1992, until being sentenced to 3 years in federal prison at 21 for smuggling weed between Mexico and the United States. Released at 24 years old, he reconnected with his former classmate Tito Ortiz, who unsurprisingly encouraged him to try MMA, with Aaron debuting in December of that same year. By the start of 2003, he had fought 24 times, including a one-off UFC appearance at 26 years old, where the 8-3 Brink was finished in a 55-second submission loss to debuting Andrei Arlovsky, ironically after the announcers specifically mentioned that he trains to avoid submissions. Although during that same time, Brink would transform into adult film star Dick Delaware. After a fight, he claims to have been approached by a producer and quickly came to be booked in over 1,200 videos throughout his career. According to his brother, shortly after joining the industry, while at a party with other performers, Aaron was introduced to meth. 4 months later, he was injecting it. Brink made this his routine for years, causing the first MMA hiatus of his career in mid-2007, after a string of fights that he was quite strung out for, even being arrested for assault later on in 2008, where his wife reportedly covered his $100,000 bail to save him from another prison sentence. He's said to have been struggling with meth since 2004 leading into 2009, meaning that well overlaps at least 12 fights of his career and a 5-fight losing streak, as well as his last fight at the time, surprisingly a win in March 2007. That was until his second wife Vanessa began to worry about his health and contacted the show Intervention, where in 2009, Aaron would unknowingly appear in Season 6, Episode 8, showcasing what had caused him to lose both his fighting and adult film careers. It primarily focused on how he'd been spending his days using drugs and watching porn for hours on end. I'm talking 12 hours at a time. After little convincing, Aaron accepted treatment and completed such following the show in late 2009. What's interesting though, is Aaron was sent to the Pasadena Recovery Center, aka Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. But seeing as the show had only just been renewed for a 3rd season that wouldn't air until 2010, Brink experienced his intervention process long before the next season would have been filmed, so he obviously wasn't considered to be featured on the show. Unlike fellow UFC alum Rico Rodriguez of Season 1 a year prior. Unfortunately, the episode ends with text saying that Aaron relapsed less than a month after completing treatment. But in 2009, reports began to surface that Aaron was clean and wished to continue fighting. His wish would be quickly granted by Travis Brown, who, one win away from being signed to the UFC, welcomed Brink back to the sport with a 35-second KO loss in 2010. Then, in 2011, he and his soon-to-be ex-wife appeared on Season 13, Episode 4 of the show Divorce Court. The couple would eventually separate for real, with Vanessa changing her name to Cassandra Cruz years later. After a quiet few years of consistent regional fights and not much social media activity, aside from these strange videos where Aaron I think promotes and supports local brands by being kicked in the balls with no protection, between the 2nd and 3rd entry of this series, Aaron would make headlines for a different reason. When on May 21st, 2016, at the age of 41, Brink and another man were arrested in Rockland, California for attempted burglary and possession of a firearm. Aaron was also charged for a violation of parole while being under the influence of a controlled substance. I'm willing to bet that it's meth based off this photo. Aside from one fight and 2 more ball-kicking uploads months after the arrest, the 4th entry notably including his tattoo artist brother who appeared in the Intervention episode, kicking Aaron a record 3 times in a row, not much happened to Brink for a few years, hopefully for good reason, with his last adult film credit taking place in 2016, according to IMDb. But who knows with comments like this.
The Internet Adult Film Database lists a few movies released this year that you're in. Aaron, are you splitting your time between fighting and your films these days?
Actually, you know, a lot of those film releases, they show that they release now, but those have been in the bag for a long time. I shot for them in 2007 or 2006. To hold on to the content or the footage, and then they release it, and then it'll show that I did a scene like last week or whatever, and that's not the case.
By February 2018, a comment left on his Intervention fan page read that he's sober, not in jail, and done with porn according to his new wife Angie. With 2 MMA wins later that year and a BKFC loss at the end of 2018, Aaron would seemingly be nearing the end of his career, because in June 2019, he would win what would turn out to be his last fight, with a first-round TKO. stepping away from MMA with a record of 29, 27, and 2 no contests, even though a rumored boxing match between him and Shannon Rich continued to fall through between 2020 and 2021. Separate from the sport, unfortunately in November 2022, Aaron's only child chose to commit an act of extreme violence, killing 5 and injuring 17 others in Colorado. Embarrassingly, Brink managed to somehow distract from the tragedy while causing discourse with his own beliefs and an easily unearthed drug-riddled career on and off camera. According to the internet, after quietly suffering from pancreatic cancer, Aaron died in May 2023. He was 48 years old, concluding the story of one of the most controversial, forgotten UFC alumni. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these. I got a ton more unknown UFC fighters who've done some shitty things. Thanks for watching.
You already know, man. We kicking, man. It's 6 a.m., bro. We smoking meth.